Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Warhammer Total War quick match gameplay. This time I'm playing as Wood Elves against Norsca, led by Xander, numbers Jesus, on MP Crossroads. So right off the bat, I wasn't entirely sure what Wood Elves should bring against Norsca. I do know that Norsca does tend to have a lot of units with physical resistance rather than armor. And so I figured magical damage would be solid against them. I also knew that Norsca is fairly solid against large, so originally I wasn't going to bring too many large units, but then again, a lot of their anti-large is very low on armor piercing, so I figured, you know what, Treemen and lacks magic damage. So Treemen, Firebark Elders, and Treemen Durthu should all hold up a-okay. Now, for my leadership here, I obviously took Durthu because I decided, obviously I'm not going for any kiting build or any fancy, or just trying to match him head to head. Durthu is coming in with Flock of Doom, Wiston's Wild Form, and of course the Sword of Daith. He's backed up by a Branch Wraith over here, coming in with only Earthblood, as well as Smoke and Mirrors, Call of the Woods, and a Scroll of Shielding. Then a Treeman, and just give me a strong kind of command squad of high damage or relatively high damage units, doing a lot of magic damage and can just tear through enemy lords, hold up pretty well. For my front line, rather than doing conventional infantry front line, I'm running of Eternal Guards today. I'm running a bunch of Treemen, 2 normal Treekin, and a Firebark Elders, because Norsca can sometimes bring a Fire Mage and that. Potentially bring a Fire Mage in that, so I'd want it to be sure to be resistant to that. These guys also dish out fire damage, which is strong against a lot of Norscan units who have regeneration, so I figured that would be good. And they, of course, they have a charge defense against large. And they're pretty tanky against infantry charges too. And backing that up, 2 units of Dryads. Dryads have, once again, magic damage and do very well against unarmored targets, and that is what I assumed the majority of my foe's force would be, either Marauders or Skin Wolves or that sort of stuff without armor. So Dryads should tear through that very quickly with their magic damage and relatively high melee attack and decent melee defense. And behind that, the new Low X Tricksters, War Dancers, Azrai Spears. This is the new Regiment of Renown that trades the standard War Dancer dance that trades melee defense for missile resistance for 1 that improves attack in exchange for melee defense. Then I have 2 units of Unshielded Wild Riders, and this was definitely a bit of a gamble. I know that Norsca can bring a lot of anti-large and pretty quick anti-large at that with Skin Wolves, but at the same time, I thought that if I can get rear charges, make use of the fear on these guys, that would definitely be useful against Norsca's infantry contention. So there's definitely a bit of a risk there. Now my opponent is running Wolfric as his lord in a chariot, which is a bit of an interesting thing against Wood Elves, who can shut chariots down fairly effectively. They have a decent amount of unit selection to shut that stuff down. He's also running 2 Feral Mammoths, which is definitely a bit of an interesting choice, but once again, Wood Elves can run a lot of shooting units, and so I'm not entirely sure Feral Mammoths will hold up very well to those. And they have very low armor, but they do a lot of damage. They can definitely tear through infantry quickly. Then a front line of Marauders, definitely a good cannon fodder unit. That should trade pretty efficiently with normal Elven infantry, and even probably the Dryads. Then behind that, 3 units of Marauder Berserkers, who are very strong against elf infantry, mostly because of their berserker trait and the fact that they dish out a lot of hurt. They're kind of like lightly armored Forsaken. They should perform very well. A unit of Norscan White Ice Wolves, backed up by the Beasts of Tashanar, who are the anti-large Norscan Warhounds, and then 2 units of Skin Wolves, the vanilla variant, no armor, but they are a little quicker than the armor variant, so that should definitely give me a bit of trouble. And as you can see, I'm trying to posture the Wild Riders so that they don't have to meet the enemy cavalry, if at all possible. I want the cavalry to engage on either the Treekin or the I want their fast units to either engage on the Treekin or on the Low X Tricksters, just could absorb it much better. Now here what I'm doing is, seeing that my opponent is being way too aggressive with his Mammoths, not really allowing his army to keep up, I'm pushing Durthu and his command squad up to meet the one of the Feral Mammoths, knowing that he can tear through it fairly quickly. And over on this flank, I'm trying to shut down this Feral Mammoth, and unfortunately I make a major mistake here. I sent the War Dancers up against it. Huge mistake. With its charge bonus and the fact that the War Dancers are very squishy, it actually performs very well against anti-large units. And as you can see, these guys are already down over 15 models in the space of a few seconds. So definitely anti-large infantry does not do particularly well against Mammoths, because you can just trample them so quickly. But now the Treekin are on it, and they'll do a very good job there. Still keeping the Dryads back in reserve, and now I'm trying to shuffle the Wild Riders around to kind of flex where needed. Over here, Durthu has absolutely trampled the Mammoth. It completely fell apart and retreated. Over here, the Treemen are pushing into the Marauders, where they'll do very well against. Now I'm pushing the Dryads into helping against the Marauders as well. Look, Strictures though, now that I've popped Storm Blaze, they're actually doing a decent amount of damage to the Feral Mammoth, but of course it's still trampling through them and dishing up massive amounts of hurt to them. Over here, I did catch the Beasts of Tashanar before they could, before their Skinwolf support came, and that meant I managed to do a decent amount of damage and rout them off. And now, and I've also brought Dryads down. Dryads will actually do immense damage to Skinwolves, who would have, they do have regen, but having physical resistance and next to no armor means Dryads will do immense amounts of work to them. And I'm simply pulling my Wild Riders away, trying to stay clear of the Skinwolves if at all possible, because I don't really want to lose them. Just letting the Dryads do most of the work there. Over here, my command team is doing very well against Wulfric, who is alone and on a chariot, making him a fairly easy target. Durthu is absolutely smushing him. I'm casting Earthbloods. I do believe I've casted an Earthblood over here. The Treemen are holding very well. The Loic Strictures are slowly melting this guy to poor Mammoth down. Some of the Marauders have already fled. And the Firebark Elders will hold for a very long time. Unfortunately, my cavalry over here and the Dryads backing them up are getting, are slowly dying. I'm trying to tear through these Norscan Ice Wolves before the Skinwolves come, but at this point my opponent is going to be able to sandwich my cavalry contingent. You can see Seafang run through my force there. Beasts of Tashanar in my back. Norscan Ice Wolves to my front. Skinwolves coming in from all sides. So my cavalry contingent and the Dryads are in a lot of trouble. I'm trying to pull these Dryads off the line to try to help. This is just becoming a total mosh pit. Fortunately, though, I'm winning the front. Here, I left my Treeman to deal with Wulfric, and he's doing that very successfully. Treeman is a pretty potent close quarters combatant. He's going to force Wulfric to run away here. Wulfric's going to run and let the Mammoth try to tank for him. Now, Durthu over here has basically routed off these Berserkers because he caused terror. He's got the Branch Wraith in there, which will free up this group so they can come down here. And help deal with the Skinwolves. And because of the magic damage, once again, on the Treemen, they should do fairly well against the Skinwolves. My Firebark Elders would probably be ideal against the Skinwolves, but they are tied down fighting Berserkers, who they're doing very well against. Though the Berserkers, the longer they stay in the fight, are going to get better and better and dish out more and more damage. And they're going to start getting resistances, extra leadership, that sort of stuff. Over here, the other unit of Treemen is not doing as well as the Firebark Elders, but they're doing decent enough, and they're going to hold for a very long time. Over here, the first Mammoth has been felled by the Treeman. As you can see, the Treeman performs very well against the Mammoth. With his 100 armor, it means he's going to greatly mitigate the Feral Mammoth's damage output, but somewhere, or definitely at least somewhat mitigates the damage output. And having solid melee defense and melee attack means that he absolutely shreds through the Feral Mammoth's pitiful melee resistance, or melee defense, and can actually block a lot of the melee attacks with the Mammoth. The Mammoth is much better against hordes rather than single targets. I think a giant is probably better against single targets. Durthu over here, though, helping to keep these Treemen in the fight. The Dryads are still sticking around. They're definitely dishing out a lot of hurt. As you can see, the Dryads up to 70 kills, which is no small feat, especially for such a cheap unit. Treemen over here is also doing fairly well. I popped Wisdom's Wild Form on him, I think only then, because I didn't have quite enough wins for anything else. Over here, another Mammoth has gone down. Tag team between the Branch Wraith and the Treemen. The Firebark Elders doing pretty well. I do try to catch Wulfric, hoping that he'd come in for the fight, but he doesn't, so I'm going to end up pulling these guys back. Over here, the Dryads are trying to fight the Skinwolves. I am using the remaining Wild Riders to rout and Dryads to rout off the Beasts of Tashanar, and that should free these guys up to help over here. I do still have a second unit of Wild Riders who fled all the way out to here. As you can see, the Wild Riders did not fare particularly well against the enemy cav. Or the enemy. I keep calling Skinwolves cav. They're technically not, but they're so fast they really behave like it. Trying to get on top of these Skinwolves now with the Dryads, though. Obviously, they're still a pretty healthy unit, but against the combination of Durthu, who's now popping Sword of Daith, against the Treemen, they should not be able to perform. And as you can see, they're absolutely getting destroyed. Wulfric is just sitting here because at this point he's too terrified to really risk a fight. The Branch Wraith over here came in from behind and kind of mopped up my opponent, or feared my opponent's infantry, and now it's pushing into the Berserkers. Unfortunately, these Firebark Elders are just kind of sitting here, and I'm not moving them around. I did push some Azrai Spears into the back of these Berserkers, and they got torn apart. There was only a handful of them left at that point. That was definitely there wasn't much that I could do with that. I did try to use the missile attack on Durthu against Wulfric. It really doesn't do much. It's like 100 damage. Another cast of Seafang. Seafang is not a bad spell, but it's not amazing either. And at this point, my Dryads and Wild Riders were also coming back, so I was hoping to pincer sandwich this group, and that was the game. So, very brutal, drawn-out match. Once again, I definitely think there were some mistakes with my build, but also some things that I would have done right. The Wild Riders were a very big risk, and they didn't pay off. At the same time, they did tie down a pretty significant amount of my opponent's resources. And with the help, and they definitely helped bait my opponent into fighting the Dryads. And Dryads, especially this one unit, and managed to rack up 70 kills. The other unit of Dryads mostly end up fighting with Skinwolves, so 13 kills for that is no mean feat, considering they're fighting a unit that's significantly more expensive. And I think that's something that can never be understood. Skinwolves, especially the default vanilla variant, without armor, are incredibly vulnerable to high DPS units. I could imagine that something like Forsaken will absolutely tear through them. They're actually also vulnerable to shock cavalry, to heavy armored cavalry. Despite their bonus against large, they simply don't dish out enough. They don't dish out that much hurt, and the cavalry will beat them down pretty effectively. So you definitely have to be careful. Skinwolves are very glass cannony, and against units like Dryads who completely bypass their physical resistance, and their armor is practically worthless because it's so low. They just can't perform. I definitely made a huge mistake with the War Dancer with the Azrai Spear by pushing him into the Mammoth. I should have simply left that to the Treemen, who will perform much, much better against the Mammoth with its atrocious melee defense and melee attack. Because once the Mammoth, a lot of the Mammoth's power comes from its charge. Once the charge has been wasted, its melee attack and melee defense stats are absolutely terrible. So it's much better to simply tie it down with units like Treemen, who can just tank the charge, deny the charge bonus, and then kind of beat it down. I would have been much better using the low X Tricksters to shut down the Ginwolves. But yeah, this Treemen, of course, held really well. The Treeman did amazing work. Ended up killing both of the Mammoths. Durthu dishing out massive amounts of hurt, same with the Branch. So definitely, I think a magic-heavy build with the Wood Elves, with a handful of armor-piercing units like Durthu and the Azrai Spears, for those rare armored units, can definitely be very potent against Norsca, who, especially against Wood Elves, who tend to have squishy units. Norsca will feel more comfortable running a squishier lineup, just to kind of try to swamp you. So good game to my opponent. Very closely fought. I do hope you guys enjoyed. It was a lot of fun. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below so that you can stay up to date on all the latest content. If you have any comments, criticism, any ideas what you'd like to see, what other comps you'd like to see me run, what other units you'd like to see showcased, do feel free to share those down in the comments. I'll be sure to read them and respond as soon as I can. I appreciate you all for watching, and bye for now.